A national health response drill for ocean warming may sound abstract, even bureaucratic, but it represents one of the most urgent and neglected needs of our time. The warming ocean is not a distant or silent phenomenon. It is the hidden engine behind the intensifying heat waves, disrupted rainfall, food shortages, and outbreaks of disease now emerging across continents. Yet, despite these cascading threats, few nations have seriously practiced what a multi-year ocean-driven heat crisis would actually look like on the ground. The world conducts military war games, pandemic simulations, and disaster response exercises, but not comprehensive drills for sustained planetary heating that attacks every level of society: air, water, food, and health simultaneously. Without such preparation, the next major oceanic heat release could expose fatal weaknesses in health systems, emergency coordination, and national infrastructure. A well-designed tabletop exercise for ocean warming would not be a theoretical meeting of scientists. It would be a full-scale national rehearsal involving ministries of health, environment, agriculture, defense, and education, alongside local clinics, hospitals, and communities. The objective would be simple but monumental: to simulate the cascading health impacts of a prolonged marine heat anomaly, say, 2 or 3 consecutive years of elevated ocean temperatures, then test the nation's ability to respond. Oceanic heat events of this duration can lock in chronic air stagnation, droughts, and heat domes over land. They can trigger massive fish die-offs, crop failures, and a surge in waterborne and vector-borne disease. Yet few countries have ever modeled how to maintain food distribution, hospital capacity, and mental health care under such relentless stress. The first warning such an exercise would reveal is how unprepared most health systems truly are for sustained heat stress. Hospitals might have heatwave protocols lasting a few days, but what happens when those days stretch into months, or when summer never fully ends? Power grids fail under peak demand, cooling systems overheat, and water supplies dwindle. Ambulance crews collapse from exhaustion, and chronic diseases worsen as medication storage and cold chain logistics falter. A national drill would force agencies to confront these scenarios before they become reality, to map which hospitals are most at risk of blackout, which regions lack backup water or generators, and which patient populations would be most endangered by supply shortages. Another layer of vulnerability lies in communication and coordination. During a multi-year warming event, emergencies do not come in neat sequences, they overlap. A heat wave may coincide with a viral outbreak, while drought cripples food production. Public messaging often collapses under such complexity. In a tabletop exercise, agencies could practice issuing consistent, science-based warnings without triggering panic or misinformation. They could test real-time data sharing between meteorological offices, health ministries, and local responders, ensuring that ocean anomalies detected months earlier translate into hospital-level preparedness. Too often, these signals stay trapped in academic reports or government silos, reaching health professionals only after the crisis is already unfolding. The economic dimension must also be confronted directly. A long-term ocean heat event would devastate fisheries, agriculture, and tourism, 3 pillars of many national economies. Malnutrition and unemployment would compound mental health strain, leading to rising suicide rates, domestic violence, and addiction. A national drill would need to simulate not only medical care but social resilience, how to maintain food subsidies, mental health hotlines, and public safety when resources are stretched and tempers fray. Without coordinated economic safety nets, even minor environmental stress can escalate into civil unrest. One of the most dangerous misconceptions is that warming unfolds slowly enough for adaptation to occur naturally. In truth, ocean heat can trigger sudden regime shifts. Within a season, local climates can transform. Tabletop exercises are the only controlled way to anticipate these rapid, nonlinear changes. They allow decision-makers to test uncomfortable questions. What if a prolonged marine heat wave eliminates 60% of coastal fish stocks? What if water scarcity forces migration from one province to another? What if recurring blackouts leave intensive care units uncooled during record temperatures? Each of these scenarios tests not just scientific understanding but political will and ethical clarity. Who gets priority when resources run out, and how are those decisions justified? Another major gap that drills could expose is the fragility of supply chains for critical medical goods. During multi-year warming, Shipping routes may be disrupted by extreme storms, port closures, or algae blooms. Drug manufacturing, heavily dependent on temperature control and clean water, could falter. Hospitals may find themselves without fluids, dialysis filters, or vaccines. A tabletop exercise could simulate these shortages, forcing governments to consider emergency stockpiles, domestic production capacity, and international coordination. The same principle applies to food systems. What happens when imported grain prices spike due to simultaneous global crop failures caused by oceanic heat patterns like El Niño? Most countries lack contingency plans for synchronized agricultural collapse. Psychological and community health must not be treated as afterthoughts. Sustained heat and environmental decline wear down human morale as much as bodies. Healthcare workers themselves are vulnerable. Burnout, heat fatigue, and compassion exhaustion rise dramatically during prolonged crises. A drill could reveal whether systems have psychological support structures for their frontline personnel. Too often, even the best response plans overlook this invisible factor, leading to institutional collapse from within. The negative reality is that most countries still treat climate health preparedness as a bureaucratic checkbox, not a survival imperative. Few have invested in realistic simulations that connect ocean science to hospital operations or public behavior. This negligence is dangerous. Without practice, even well-funded health systems will fail under the simultaneous pressure of heat illness, food insecurity, migration, and infrastructure breakdown. Tabletop drills are not mere exercises. They are rehearsal for an unfolding planetary emergency that cannot be postponed. The warnings from past disasters are clear. Every major heat wave has exposed how uncoordinated response systems are, how late warnings come, and how invisible the vulnerable remain. Now imagine that multiplied by years. Ocean warming is not a single storm. It is a climate siege. A proper national health response drill would allow governments to identify choke points before they snap, to train responders in multi-sector collaboration, and to test communication networks that must function in chaos. It would reveal whether societies can stay coherent when their oceans no longer protect them but punish them. In the end, the purpose of these exercises is not bureaucratic perfection. It is survival. A nation that practices how to withstand multi-year ocean heat is a nation that acknowledges reality. The world cannot continue to improvise through disaster after disaster. Every degree of ocean heat stored today will return to us in the form of drought, disease, and death. Only through deliberate rehearsal, through confronting our worst-case scenarios, can societies learn to protect their people before those waves of heat and hunger arrive. Failure to prepare is not ignorance anymore. It is negligence on a scale that history will not forgive.